Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me and my very special guest. He is one of the entertainment industry's most sought-after actors. You know him from his Tony-nominated star turn, which was also his Broadway debut in Terrence McNally's It's Only a Play, opposite the likes of Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick, and from such shows as And Away We Go and the starry revival of The Front Page. He is known to film and TV audiences for his current roles, including real-life astronaut Deke Slayton on the Disney Plus original series The Right Stuff and the Netflix series Bonding, where he plays Doug, which has just recently kicked off its second season. And from Showtime's Escape at Dannemora for producer-director Ben Stiller, the Netflix reboot of Tales of a City, and from the critically acclaimed film Brittany Runs a Marathon, which won the Sundance Audience Award. Please say hello to my friend, Micah Stock.
Hi, Richard. That was very thorough and very nice introduction.
You see, your whole career just went by. You're like, oh my gosh, did I do all those things, right?
I know, it feels sort of both vast and reductive somehow.
First of all, my friend, how are you and where are you?
I'm well, and I'm currently at my parents' house in Dayton, Ohio. And I'm, surrounded by the evidence of all my uncool past selves on a daily basis. But it's nice. It's good to be with family. But I've been in Brooklyn for most of the year.
Okay, so, it has now been over a year since the New York theater shut down. I mean, there's a light at the end of the tunnel now. Vaccines are beginning to roll out. I mean, have the days gotten a little better for you, or do you still have good days and bad days? Like, what's your life like?
It's good days and bad days. I mean, listen, I'll be honest. I'm over it. I really want this to be over. I recognize that, things still have to happen. People still need to get vaccinated. We got to be safe. But I sort of feel like I put myself on hold. And now I've gotten this far. I've sort of hibernated this long. I'm just going to wait until someone knocks on my door and says, here's a job. Because frankly, I just find the alternative, I think about it too much. I just get really, really sad.
Yeah. Listen, I've spoken to stars all around the world. I had Cherry Jones in Switzerland. I've had Elaine Page in London and everybody else. And, depending on where you are or what your living situation is, like, do you have someone to stay with? Are you staying with family? Everyone has a different how they've gotten through this year so far. So when did you arrive at your parents' house? When did you arrive home at Dayton?
I've only been here for a week and a half. I've been in New York, and of course, I think like a lot of people, I got a quarantine dog very early on. And that made a huge difference in my day-to-day happiness. Her name's Banana. She's a 70-pound Great Pyrenees sheepdog from Hearts and Bones Rescue in Brooklyn, New York.
Congratulations.
Adopt, don't shop. And then this just seemed like a good time. My parents just got vaccinated, so it seemed like a good time to come home where I could actually, I've driven back a few times, but the whole time was just very tense and anxious, maintaining social distance and wearing masks and, the quarantining before. So, this felt like kind of the last window where I could come and just enjoy their company and be a person before things start cooking again.
Yeah. So what's it like being home again? Like, was this the home you were brought up in?
This is the house I was brought up in. This is the house that I presume, I wasn't born in it. I was born in the hospital, but presumably. And, what's funny is I was realizing today, when I moved out, I don't like have a room anymore. It's like the room, and we all see, I have 4 siblings. So we all stayed in different rooms, different times, different ages. But I really do feel like sort of a visiting uncle in my parents' house.
I love it. Are there signs of your upbringing still there, like your teenage years or your younger years? Are there still like remnants of that somewhere through the house?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I still have, my mother has been very diligent at keeping various paraphernalia and memorabilia over. Paraphernalia makes it sound like drug. I meant memorabilia. Although maybe she found some drugs and some I remember at some point. But yes, I was just looking yesterday at a photo album. My mom kept these really meticulous photo albums, and I was reminded that I was an NSYNC impersonator in 5th and 6th grade. Surprisingly, I was Chris, and I don't think I'm a Chris. I think obviously I'm a mix between Joey and Lance, but apparently they didn't think that in 5th grade. But yes, that is to say, I'm surrounded by the ghosts of theater productions past.
Well, so many people have, because a lot of people I've spoken to said, you know what? I figured I'm going to move home with my parents and just, sort of be together. And they said it was sort of surreal for a while. I was like, oh my God, I slept in this room. It's like, or I see this stuff like, oh my God, like you said, in 5th grade, you were an NSYNC impersonator. It's just all this stuff comes back to sort of haunt you or just remind you of like how you grew up.
Yeah, no, I mean, the reason, being a weird kid is the reason anything good has ever happened to me as an adult. So
I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that, my friend. With talk about the theater opening up again, I mean, it's pretty exciting news. We're getting very close to this. How do you hope the theater comes back? What do you hope it looks like? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, listen, I think that's the much wiser people than I have said this in better ways, but I hope that this, very unfortunate set of circumstances has where we had to stop has allowed us to say, hey, what do we want this to look like when we come back? What wasn't working? And, as much as I miss theater, as much as I love it, we know that a lot wasn't working. We're hearing people say, we're hearing Black and brown and Asian people say, hey, this wasn't working for us. Like this world that we all love is not equitable. And we need to make it so. So I hope that this, this sort of forced break, if you want to call it that, has allowed us to really look at those systems and say, hey, how can we actually make this the inclusive place that we claim it to be? And that's not to dismiss that theater, isn't at all or hasn't been, amenable to telling lots of different stories. But we know, because I think it takes a lot for a community of people to make demands, right? People make demands because they have to, because for their survival, or not just for their survival, for their well-being, their livelihood. So when a group of people like We See You, White American Theater, comes out and says, listen, these are our demands, that's coming from a place of saying, we have sat on this, you guys. These have been problems for a long time, and we are making demands because now we have to demand it because that's all that's left. And I think, a lot of not-for-profit theaters have responded positively to We See You What, and than that, there are people who haven't responded yet. I'd love to see the Broadway League respond to their demands in some regard, so that we can all get back to doing the thing we love and everybody gets to do it.
Beautifully put. I think it's going to come back bigger and better than ever. I really, really do when it happens.
I have faith. I'm a hopeful person. And I think it's always good. Listen, the reason that people are wanting to elicit change is because of hope, right? If we all roll, we wouldn't be hearing about this if people had rolled over and said, okay, well, we'll just accept it.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait. Well, it's very near. It's good. It's like getting to that finish line. Like you said, you're home with your parents now. It's like, oh, please, someone just open the door and let me go back to work.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Especially plays. I mean, the truth is I haven't done a play in 4 years just because that's the way work has happened the past couple of years and it hasn't fit into my schedule. But, so I was extra hungry to do one already. But what I miss, honestly, more than doing a play is just, feeling a part of the community. And, I think there are very few communities where even when you're not working, if you go see a play, you still feel part of it. I miss that more than anything.
It's going to come back for you, my friend, which means you're going to do a play.
Absolutely, absolutely. Someday, son.
Well, listen, congratulations on your current projects. You are playing real life NASA astronaut Deke Slayton on the critically acclaimed Disney Plus series, The Right Stuff, which is terrific. It is, of course,
Thank
based
you.
on. Oh, I love this. I've been living through all my friends who I know from stage. I'm watching all their series, and I was always fascinated. I read the book, I saw the original film, so now watching this is so great. It's so beautifully cast. I mean, it's based on Tom Wolfe's iconic bestseller. What attracted you to the role and to this project?
Yeah, so I got the script through my agents, and I'll say at first glance, my thought was like bunch of old white guys, like. But then I read the script, and I thought, oh, something else is happening here. This is, as much as it's about NASA and the wonder of space exploration, Tom Wolfe's book and also our series really becomes sort of a meditation on both toxic masculinity and I think the darker side of American nationalism, which is through the lens of these seven guys who were held up as these upstanding moral citizens, and though they were extremely talented and intelligent and smart, they were flawed. And so I think what attracted me to the series was asking these questions. Because if it was rah rah sis boom ba, you know, hashtag MAGA, I'm not signing on for that.
What kind of research did you do to play him? Like when you're playing a real life person, did you read books? Did you watch film clips?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about Deke Slayton, the role that I play in The Right Stuff, is he was part of NASA for a very long time. So he was part of the original Mercury 7 and was supposed to go into space, but had a heart condition that ultimately ended up not being a very big deal. But basically, he was heartbroken and not able to go into space right away. But he worked as the chief of the astronaut office at NASA up through the shuttle missions. So for the next 20, 30 years, starting in the 60s. So there's tons and tons of footage of him, speaking in front of Congress. He has a book. And it's really nice to play a real person who you can draw upon, but not someone who's so famous that people are are watching you to see if you do it wrong. So yeah, there was a lot of great research to do.
Was there something specific that unlocked him for you? Like, oh yeah, now I've got Deke.
That's really interesting. I mean, he has a very particular sounding voice. Um, I do too. He's from Wisconsin. He has a very deep kind of drawl, and I think that was what first sort of cued him into me because he's my age, but he sounds like he's a 65-year-old man. And whether or not that's because he was chain smoking cigarettes or whatnot, but that was kind of the key into it, and it helps me energetically with him too, to sort of figure out where he landed. He's a very measured guy. Yeah, and that's once I sort of like found that, I could just sit and observe. He's an observer.
Because what I love about everything you've done, you get lost in the characters you play, which I think is great, or you disappear. And I think that's fascinating with everything you do. Like I don't see Micah, I see Deke, or I see the next person we're going to talk about. That's what I love about what you do.
Oh, well, that's a very high compliment. Thank you, Richard. I mean, that's the goal, right? That's the fun. The fun part is getting out of your own shit for a day. And am I allowed to say that on Broadway
Yes,
World?
sure you are. Of course you are.
You can bleep it. Like the whole reason I did this is because I never knew what I wanted to do with my life, and so now I get to try on different things. I got to be an astronaut for a couple months, and it was a
Did you
blast.
go to astronaut boot camp?
We did. So the coolest part was we shot down near Cape Canaveral and actually got to be in some of the real rooms at NASA where these launches happened and where these guys were. So I did. We had about 2 weeks at Cape Canaveral of pilot training because they were all test pilots, and we got to watch. We got to sit. We didn't get to go up in one because insurance. You can't have actors dying.
Next
But
season, they'll do that for you.
Yeah, exactly. But we did get to see a fighter jet take off right in front of us and break the sound barrier, probably like 50 yards away in front of us on the pad where the shuttle landed, which is one of the longest runways in the world. So we got to do some pretty cool stuff. And I got to meet astronauts. Yeah. And astronauts are so cool. They actually, because of what they've seen, only 500 people in the world have gone into space. And because of what they've seen, they like carry that inside them. The specialness of having seen something that no one else has ever experienced, or not many people have experienced. And I asked one astronaut, or I've asked every astronaut I've met, Nicole Stott, Mae Jemison, among others. But I asked Nicole Stott, I said, do you miss it? And her eyes just sparkled and she said, every day. I miss space every day.
I have goosebumps just having you tell me that. I have goosebumps.
I know, isn't that cool?
Like to have that those rockets blow off, and then you're in a whole other galaxy, and you're up there, and like you said, only a few people, a few hundred, know what that actually feels like.
Yeah, it's an astonishingly low number. I mean, of something for someone to have experienced, but yeah, it's an amazing thing.
And what a stellar cast you get to work with too.
Yeah, I really loved. I mean, that was one of the great gifts of the show. It was a really great ensemble, and everybody really got along. And I was one of the sole New York theater people there, but I was welcomed with open arms.
That's great. You're also the co-star of the hilarious Netflix series Bonding, which has recently premiered its second season. I watched this during the shutdown. I was like, tell our audience what this show is about and who you play.
So Bonding is Bonding on Netflix. Both seasons streaming on Netflix. Is a show about a young dominatrix who starts off doing dominatrix and BDSM and dungeon work as a way to pay for grad school. But then sort of as the story goes on, it becomes a question of, oh, well, this might actually be a good life for me. So that's the main story, is her and her best friend, who is a comedian who she drags into being her assistant when she goes on various jobs. And that basis comes from Writer Doyle, the creator, writer, director's actual experience. He actually assisted his friend as a dominatrix when he was a young actor in New York. In any case, I play Doug, who is, someone originally referred to him as a himbo, which I guess is the male gendered version of bimbo. But I think he's a lot smarter than that. But who is the boyfriend of the dominatrix, and he's a wonderful guy who's sort of contending with his own issues of masculinity and how he feels about sex work and being in a relationship with a dominatrix. And it's also very funny. I'm very proud of it.
It's so funny. I just laughed through the entire first season and into the second season. How much fun is it playing this role?
Oh, it's a blast. So Writer Doyle, our creator, who many of you he's an actor as well, has been on Broadway and done many other things. He's an actor, so he knows what's fun to act. And it's a very loose, very creative set where you sort of feel like I can just expand and do whatever I want. Especially, we shot the first season not knowing anybody would ever see it. I'd known Ryder when we were both, I was an apprentice and he was in the non-equity company at Williamstown Theater Festival 12 years ago. And then 7-8 years after that, he asked me to do a little web series. And then that web series got bought by Netflix. And then we shot a second season on Netflix. So it always felt very homegrown. Like when it ended up on Netflix, it sort of felt like, oh, that's weird. Our little club thing that we did for fun ended up on TV.
That seems to be the new now with so much stuff, especially like on Netflix and these streaming. They all start out as a little web series, 7-minute episodes or whatever. Someone then says, "Oh, we're interested in this, and like here's some money." Turn into a big series now.
Yeah, I mean, well, you get better stories that way, right? Because people start off with the control. They don't have somebody, from get saying, change this, fix that. It was just pure expression. It was exactly what writer wanted it to be. And I think that's one of the great, that's not to Netflix's credit. When they bought the show, they said, keep doing what you're doing.
Well, that's what's great about them too. They see something, they're like, no, we love this, go for it. You have your own creative energy, go do your thing and make your magic. It's so much fun. I mean, another dynamite cast, ensemble cast you get to work with on that too.
Yeah, it's a total blast. I mean, that was a job, especially the second season, coming back, and the show had, gotten very successful, and everybody but then we came back, it's like suddenly we had trailers. It's like, our craft services was like goldfish, and our trailers were like plastic bags that someone would just hold up in between each other. So it was all a gift and a joy for us. It was like, we just get to keep playing, but with more money.
And with better craft services.
And better craft services.
Right. That's how you know you've made it, when you go to a craft table and there's stuff that you're like, ooh, this is really good.
Yeah, I'm into that. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, before we get into some of your other career highlights, I want to go back to the beginning. Growing up in Ohio, where did your love for the theater begin? And how did playing Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof in 8th grade change everything for you?
Wow. I don't know. Was Tevye the tipping point, or I know I started doing theater really early. I think my mom started me and all my brothers and sisters in dance. She just really wanted us to be coordinated. She always talked about how she wished she'd done that. So my two older brothers, me, my little sister, we all were in gymnastics, tap, jazz, ballet, all of that. And I think it was kind of through that I found community theater. There were some, it was a small community. Tevye, it's funny you brought up Tevye. I mean, so I played Tevye in 8th grade, and I think basically it was just, I just watched Topal in the movie and just impersonated him. And I also didn't know how to complete a gesture. So I remember my elbows were stuck to my sides. So there's a lot of eyebrows and a lot of la, 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 I have 2 daughters. Is that a line from Fiddler on the Roof?
Well, you have 5 daughters, actually.
Right, he has 5. That's the whole thing. Too many daughters. No, I think that was the time when I was like, oh, I want to be a character actor, and I've been a middle-aged character actor since I was 14.
See that? Okay. I think we're getting into my next question. Then there is the Muse Machine.
Yeah.
What was that like? And that was a really life changer for you, because I've seen all these pictures of you. I just looked the other day of all these beautiful pictures of you and all these productions that go by. And I sort of watched you go from, those teenage periods and these roles that you played. You look so happy. What did the Muse Machine mean to you, and how life changing was that for you, Micah?
Well, it meant a lot to me for so many reasons. One, it was citywide, right? So I grew up in a little suburb outside of Dayton. There was, great schools, had some great programs, but it was pretty homogenous in every regard. And so I think the best part of the Muse Machine was I got to meet kids from all over the city, different backgrounds, different races, faiths, socioeconomic status. I mean, it was just that was really valuable for me as a kid growing up in a, pretty homogenous area. But then also just the level, of devotion it required. It was it kind of, I think, as far as high school productions go, gives you a pretty good sense of, what it takes to make something that people will pay for, and that people deserve. So professionally it was helpful, but honestly it was just a home for me. It was an arts education organization that's still very active. more important than ever. And I talk to kids from all over the country, and no one's really had anything quite like it. And a lot of people are surprised that it's in Dayton, Ohio, but Dayton's badass, man. We have a professional regional theater. We have opera. I don't live here anymore, but I'll say we have an opera. We have a ballet. We have a philharmonic. We get all kinds of great traveling shows. Dayton, Ohio is a gem.
Now, you were in all their productions, I think, between 2004 and 2007. You did them all, right?
I did them all. Yeah. I mean, that was the thing you did. Like, if you were in theater in Dayton, like Muse Machine was Broadway.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first time I auditioned for a Muse Machine musical, I thought I messed it up, and I came home bawling because it was like I had missed the opportunity of a lifetime. I convinced myself. Of course, I was wrong, and I was in the show.
You booked it. I love that.
Booked it. What does that mean? The cast list went out. Booked it. And then making the deal was really tough for that. No. Yeah, it meant everything to me. And the funny thing is that, I don't really do musicals professionally now. But I'm so grateful for that because, I like musicals, and it made me stretch and sort of like, okay, like what I had to try everything.
Okay. Is there a dream role of yours from a Sondheim musical that you would love to tackle?
Oh, I mean, I love to be in Assassins. I love to, there are multiple roles in Assassins I love to play. I've been fantasizing about that since I was, 11 years old, and I didn't understand what they were talking about. I mean, I think I understood even when I wasn't intellectually advanced enough to understand Sondheim. Even as a young child, there was something about there was the impression that he made on me, almost in an abstract way, that I don't think will ever go away.
Yeah, because I saw Company when I was 11, the original production, and I saw the original Follies when I was 12, because I went to see Lily Munster, Yvonne DiCarlo. That was my, I said, I want to go see Lily Munster in a musical. And I was like, oh my God, I entered the world of Follies, and it still remains one of the top 3 incredible events that I've ever seen on stage, period.
Man, I'm sure. I mean, interesting. It's funny you say the original Company. One of the first Broadway shows I saw was the revival of Company with Raul Esparza and many, many other great performers. And that was like, that blew me away. I mean, that was my dad and I saw that together. It was both, streaming tears at the end.
Totally. Well, there's so many alumni from the Muse. I mean, Allison Janney, the list goes on and on and on. I just wanted to tell our people out there, anybody watching, just go to their website. It's a fabulous non-for-profit arts organization in Dayton, Ohio. Just go to Muse, M-U-S-E machine.com. You can donate anything to this incredible arts organization that's gone on for years. I know you did a virtual theater class with students over this pandemic, Micah. That must have been really great for you to do too.
Yeah, I love stinking. I mean, there's a reason that I'm doing what I'm doing today, and it's like, it's no wonder to me that I'm doing what I'm doing when I grew up where I grew up with the parents I have. So, if you want your children to be like me, move to Dayton, Ohio.
That's totally it. I want to talk about some of your New York credits. We recently lost not only one of the greatest playwrights of all time, but one of the greatest humans, of course, Terrence McNally, who you knew very well, who I knew very well. What did Terrence mean to you both personally and professionally?
It's immeasurable. There are the tangible aspects that are so immediately clear to me, which is like, I have the career I have today because Terrence reached down and said, hey, this kid's good, and gave me opportunities, that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So there's that, and just the very tangible regard that, a lot of things I have today are because of him. On a societal level, he wasn't done, like I think that's not to say, I know Terrence would say, he had made peace, being in the third act of his life, but man, I know he had more ideas, and that's what I mourn for the world. And then, on a personal level, yeah, I just miss him. And you know, it's actually tomorrow, I believe it'll be a year tomorrow, since he passed away. And a couple of us will gather and have some memories, virtually at least, since we can't do it in person just yet. No, it feels surreal. You know, I know a lot of people feel that this way about, you know, losing someone really special or important to them this year. It just feels so surreal because we can't gather and grieve together and celebrate them together. So yeah, I look forward to doing that. Yeah, and I miss him all the time.
Like I said, he was a dear person to me too. But as you know, I have It's Only a Play behind me. I mean, I have, you know, Kiss of a Spider Woman. I've got
That's not just for me. You always have that up there?
No, I put them up for people. When I window cards, and I just try to pull out my window cards that I have. And that was one that I had for you, because I didn't have one from your first show, which is And Away We Go, which was Terrence McNally's off-Broadway show, which critics and audiences first fell in love with you. What did being a part of that play mean to you?
Well, that was huge. That was the first play I did in New York. So already for me, it was like being in an off-Broadway play in New York City, you know, when I was, you know, 2 years out of college. That was huge for me. That's all I wanted to do. And not to mention that it was a brand new Terrence McNally play. I mean, it was just crazy town. And, you know, I will say, I remember the philosophy I took when auditioning for that job is sort of the one I try to remind myself of today whenever I get bogged down with auditioning, which is like, I said to myself, you know what? You're probably not going to get this job. So just pretend that the audition is the performance, and like, this is when you get to do it. I don't know if that's why I booked it, but that's what I tell myself sometimes when I get down.
That's beautiful philosophy. Everybody said, some other stars have told me, Richard, I go in there and I use this as a performance. I just do it like I'm doing it in front of an audience, and this is my time to do this role. So I think that's really great way you look at it. Terrence wrote you an opening night letter that night.
Yeah,
he did. Didn't he? What does that letter mean to you?
Yes. I mean, I could almost recite it by memory, but it said, the line from it that I remember all the time, especially now, and I'm sort of saying it to myself out loud because I have been away from the theater for a couple of years now, is the last line of it. He said, "Do lots of new American plays. We need you. They need you." And, you know, there was a letter to me. It's a reminder of just to go back, that's where the change happens, you know. New American plays. Let's do them. Let's see them, and let's expand what it means to be American.
Yeah.
At the same time.
I know that letter you cherish. I know it goes to all your dressing rooms. I know all that, which is really special. Well, of course, then Broadway, you took Broadway by storm with your star turn as Gus, the co-checker, which I will never forget, where you received your well-deserved Tony nomination. You won the Theater World Award, of course, in Terrence McNally's It's Only a Play. I mean, you got to share the stage with Nathan Lane, Matthew Broderick, Stockard Channing, Megan Mullally, F. Murray Abraham, Rupert Grint. I mean, what a way to make your Broadway debut.
Yeah, I mean, it was very it was sort of like Broadway debut in the dictionary. I think I can say that now with some, like, you know, a lot of people make their Broadway debuts and it's always special. I'm not, you know, but like that was kind of like the Broadway debut that you think of when you're a little kid thinking of like a Broadway debut. Like that's what you want it to look like. And so at the time when it was happening, I don't think I could sort of fully acknowledge that, or it would be too nice. You know, I had to do my job at the same time. But yeah, I mean, it was sort of absurdly show businessy, and, you know, a mirror of both like my career, you know, being this young, fresh kid. I mean, I don't think I'm as big as a dumbass as Gus is, but certainly there were some parallels that were inescapable.
No, but like you said, a dictionary version of Broadway debut. The poster says, "End introducing Micah Stock." I mean, Nathan Lane and Jack O'Brien went to see you in Terrence's play. I mean, this is like you see in a movie, like these stars come back and like, oh my God, you're so talented. And then this new Broadway show's coming up. We want Micah to do this. I'm like you said, this is textbook. This is like you dream this stuff and then you wake up and saying, oh, I'm still in my bedroom in Dayton, Ohio.
It was absolutely crazy. I mean, I think as it was happening, I was pretty skeptical, a little bit like, I feel like I'm going to get punked at some point. But I was also so, at that time I was just riding the wave, people just like, I was so shell shocked the whole time. I mean, I think even through the whole year after the run and the Tonys and everything, it wasn't until like, I think the Tonys happened and we closed on the same day that I was able to kind of really process the year before. Yeah.
Because I remember talking to you numerous times during that, and you just seemed to be like caught up in this big, incredible like wave,
I was incapable of expressing any thought beyond like, I'm just so happy. And I was really happy to be there, obviously. And I'm still very grateful for that job. But no, I had my mental wavelength to be able to like, talk about it in any earnest way was severely diminished.
Totally. I remember that. I used to look back at these things and I'm like, does Micah like me? I was like, I don't get much out of it. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm like, everybody's like, I'm going to pinch myself and wake up and realize this is not happening to me at the same time. And you want to be humble at the same time. All right. Working with Jack O'Brien, the most brilliant director. Not only did you have this incredible cast, what was it like being directed by Jack O'Brien?
I mean, that was, it was like you said, just like I was kind of being given the top of the top of the top, like right away. It was like, you're going to work with the best director, with the best playwright, with the best cast, in a Broadway theater. And I think the thing I love most about Jack is that, he's so good at painting. That was a big farce. Its only play was, and I think he approached it from that way directorially, but it was never at the expense of truth. Yeah. And I think Jack was really solidified for me how neutered comedy is if it's not coming from like a really real need. We might laugh at something that's like just head up if it's when I say head up, I mean intellectual humor. We might laugh once, but we're not going to like laugh deep down in the gut. So like to get the gut laugh, it has to come from the gut. And that I think is the most valuable thing I learned from Jack. And also, my gosh, one of the most eloquent people in the world. He just like so poetic and also had the most incredible metaphors. I remember Matthew Broderick and I this is all in good taste, used to come up with like made up Jack O'Brien quotes. And we'd say things like, this scene is a little bit like, pushing a salmon into a bucket of sand. You're never going to find the dirt. And he'd be like, and somehow you'd be like, I didn't know that Jack grew up farming salmon. But I actually understand what he means.
Yeah. But didn't you and Nathan also have a pre-show ritual for every performance?
We did. Yeah. We ran our first scene pretty much every night. And there were a couple of times, I mean, I got very OCD about it. He did too, where it became kind of like we have to do this, even if we don't want to. And there was one night where Nathan kind of like, I think we'd been doing it for a long time. And he was like, what if I don't want to do it tonight? And I was like, okay, we don't have to do it. And we got on stage and like something went wrong right away. And he came off and was like, we are never not doing that again. And I was like, I told you, we gotta.
Did you switch out accents sometimes? Did you do like Downton Abbey one night or something in the dressing room? Like, would you switch it out when you'd run your dialogue?
6 or 7 months in, yeah, we would do different versions of the first scene. We had sort of I think we had like a Godfather one. We had one that we did in fake Italian. We would do Downton Abbey sometimes. Downton Abbey was really fun because it sort of the dynamic sort of lent itself. The co-check boy situation. Yeah, I don't know. We had some weird ones.
But craziest thing that happened during that show, because it's a farce, it's nonstop. It just starts that show and it ends, except for that one night when you two thought something went wrong. What was the craziest thing that happened to you during that run?
Oh my, there were a couple crazy things. Is there a specific one that you're referencing that you're trying to lead me to?
No, but I could though. When Martin Short went into the show, something happened, wasn't it?
Oh, well, okay. I don't know if this is the one you're talking about, but I was getting a haircut between shows, and our wonderful hair makeup person, who was just, really, really overworked, accidentally just cut my ear a little bit. And it didn't seem that big, but if you've ever had a head wound, you know that they bleed like a motherfucker. Right. And so I was like, it didn't hurt. And I was like, oh no, it's okay. And then I saw his eyes go like, and I looked and there was blood just streaming down the side. So this is in between shows. So I go and I'm like trying to figure out how to wrap it up. It won't stop bleeding. I feel fine, but like it won't stop bleeding. And the stage manager's just kind of like, do you need to call out for the show? I'm like, no, I've never missed a show. I'm not missing a fucking show. And so I basically built like a giant earmuff thing. Like it was like it was honestly this thick. It was like 5 pieces of cotton, and then I duct taped it. So I just had like a giant duct tape ball on my head. So like when I walked on stage, people were like, who is this nutcase? So then the show starts. I'm the first person on stage every night. I come on stage, I open the door, I have a phone call, and I'm coming out, and no one, I don't mean to my own horror, but you're always getting laughs right away. It's pretty consistent. Not a sound, not a chuckle. And I'm like, this audience sucks. Like, what's their problem? And I pulled the phone down, and I realized that not only has my like weird duct tape ball come off, but I'm covered in blood, and I have a white jacket. And so they're just like, this guy has been in, like, we're not laughing because presumably this character has been in a horrible accident and is in shock and doesn't realize it. So Marty Short comes on stage and interrupts me, and I'm supposed to hand him the phone, and it's like Carrie covered in blood. And so he just like, he kind of like grabs it and pulls his handkerchief out and like wipes it. God bless him, and goes. But yeah, I did the whole show with blood streaming down my face.
Oh my God. But you never missed a show. That's a true trooper. That's how you do it.
I did miss. I did eventually miss a show.
Okay.
I think I missed 2 shows. I think I missed a matinee and an evening show on a Wednesday once. I missed 2 performances.
Were you really sick?
I was really sick. Yeah.
Because I know you. You're like old school. It's like, if you have to miss, you have to miss. But it's like,
Yeah. Also, I just, I was aware of the opportunity and what it meant, and I wanted to do it,
I'm sorry you bled during that show, but I'm sure it's one of those things. It's a chapter for your book. That's what this is. It's a chapter for your memoir.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Here on stage, you got to perform with Nathan again in that beautiful starry revival of The Front Page. I mean, The name of your character was who?
Wooden Shoes Icorn.
I just want you to say it. That's all. I love it.
It's a cool name, right?
How much favorite memory of that show for you was what, Micah?
That, much like It's Only Play, that was a huge ensemble. That was like 30 people. And it was just a who's who of incredible actors. There was Jefferson Mays, Nathan, Holland Taylor. There's so many people. John Goodman,
John Slattery, the whole.
John Slattery. And then not,
everybody
above the title, but everybody, Dylan Baker. And so that for me was kind of like, I love an ensemble show. My favorite filmmaker is Robert Altman. I just always loved shows that established a world in that way. And so The Front Page was one of those. And I had a blast doing it. And, you know, the great thing about that show is I got to watch a lot of it because it's, you know, it's a lot of in and out and people coming in. You have these very concentrated scenes and then you're off stage. And so Hallie Pfeiffer and I, who's also in it, we would just sit backstage and listen, you know, to these amazing actors do that for 6 months.
That was Broadway old school when you used to look at these casts, these posters for whatever that would have like 16 stars billed above the title, with everyone from Lillian Gish to whoever. Like, oh my gosh, this is how theater used to be done, where there was like 12 above the title names, and the featured cast was just as big as they were. And that's what happened with this production of the front page. Just really, really brilliant. You know, you are known to film and TV audiences for your terrific work, including the wonderful indie film Brittany Runs a Marathon, where you play Seth, the best friend of Brittany, played by Jillian Bell. I mean, what a wonderful, what an adorable film. Now, this film went on to win the Sundance Audience Award. There was a bidding war, you know, to buy this film. Again, this is one of those textbook stories you only go to bed and dream about. Like, oh my gosh, my film, and it's going to win all these awards, and there'll be a bidding war. There was for this. How exciting was that, like winning the awards and being a part of this incredible independent film?
I mean, again, yeah, I think you're right. I'm realizing that I've good luck with beginnings, I guess, because most people, you know, go to Sundance dozens of times and, you know, their movie doesn't get picked up or lots of different experiences. So I've had very privileged experiences with, I guess, my Broadway debut and then Sundance. But yeah, I was so proud of that movie. I mean, Paul Downs Colasso, who wrote that movie, you know, was a playwright, and I knew him, you know, through the theater world. And so I felt comfortable with him already. And I just thought the movie was so funny and special and heartwarming without being schlocky, and very real. And yeah, I always wanted to be in a New York movie, and it's a New York movie. I love that. Yeah, I was so proud of that film and just really good. I've been very lucky to work with very kind people. In my time. I've also worked with some very unkind people, but those aren't the ones you remember.
Yeah, I love it. No, I know that's a motto of yours. Do your work. I think you said be kind, be generous, and be kind to people. And I think people want to work with kind people in this business. You know, show business is such a bizarre world, and everyone's like, oh, I love that person because not only are they talented, but they're really nice and they're really kind. And I think people want to surround themselves with those kind of actors, don't you think?
Yeah, well, because we know you can do both, right? We know you can be a really amazing actor and not be an asshole.
Yeah,
we know it can be done. So when someone's really good but they're a dick, it's like guess what? You don't have to. We have this person over here who's going to do just as good a job and be significantly more pleasant to be around.
Yeah. You know, you also got to work with, you played Kenny Mitchell in the Showtime award-winning limited series, Escape at Dannemora. What was it like working for producer-director Ben Stiller? I mean, again, another pinch me moment, and doing scenes with Patricia Arquette.
Yeah. Well, Ben, the coolest thing is that Ben is a big theater fan. You know, and he has a huge amount of respect, and he's done theater himself, but so he knows what it requires. But a lot of the people in Dannemora were theater people because of his admiration for them. And I think much like you know, writer, the creator of Bonding, Ben is an actor too, so he knows he's in tune when to what an actor needs or what they might need. You know, I wasn't even on set very much, but when I was, he made me feel very welcome, and I could tell that he was tapping into what I was doing. You know, I would think, oh, I'd like another take, and he'd be like, let's do another one, because he was there with me as an actor. Yeah, I really appreciated that experience, and I think that's a really incredibly acted series. Not to mention Patricia. I mean, everybody on the show, but no, I mean, that was also one of the things where you walked on those sets and they were so specifically put together. You know, the production design was so beautiful and particular to that part of the world and that people's lives, that so much of the work gets done for you. I mean, I'm a lazy actor. So if someone can do half that work for me by putting me in the right clothes and putting you on the right set, I mean, it's astonishing what that does.
But see, it's a collaborative art. I mean, like you said, someone puts you in a costume. That's just as important as you as an actor. I mean, it gives you those extra things saying, "Oh my gosh, now I look and feel like this person or a wig
Yeah.
person or whatever." It's not just about you. It's all about the departments coming together to make a whole. Like you said, it's that community.
I mean, I've had characters that I felt like, oh, I'm not really settled into this person until I got a pair of boots that the costume designer gave to me. And I was like, oh, these boots did it for whatever reason. It just makes you feel more who they are.
One of my final questions for you is, what have you learned about yourself during this pandemic? It's a big question. Like I said, it's been a big year. Personal reflection. I mean, what have you learned about yourself?
I think that I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but this is really, I always thought like, oh, well, maybe I'll try my hand at writing, and I have a little bit, or oh, maybe I'll like, try my hand at directing this. But I just realized that whatever I'm going to do, I'm a collaborator. I'm not someone who likes working alone. It took me a long time, years and years of not working as an actor, to figure out, okay, how do I build my time when I'm not working, and how do I not base my value off of whether or not I'm working, because it's hard. And so I found hobbies. I started jujitsu. I did this, and then all that went away in the pandemic, right? So you're just left with yourself. So I'm pretty okay and have resigned myself to the fact that I'm a collaborator. I got to wait and make things with people in the room. So if that means that for a year I just, look into my dog's eyes, then that's what I do.
But like I said, the interesting thing is you got to talk to the kids at Muse Machine. I'm sure you learned a lot from these kids because, they're entering it's show business. I mean, there's the show end of it and there's the business end of it. And, whatever you do in this business, you sort of have to be good at both of them. And these kids are starting at a whole different point now because none of us know what it's going to look like or, how many, everyone's going to want the same roles coming out of this stuff at every level, these kids, are they at a disadvantage right now? Like, what advice did you offer them when you spoke to them over the summer or over the fall?
Well, interestingly, I wasn't able to speak to kids during that time. It was too adult, but I have spoken to kids at Muse Machine before. And I guess what I would say is, listen, I don't begrudge them coming out. Especially if they're coming out of a training program at this time, it's hard enough the first year getting out. I can't imagine doing it in a pandemic, but I would say to them, don't let this be lost time in the sense of I have to put this on hold. Let your life be as full as it can be in the immediate sense, because you may not be able to take actionable items now. I see people saying like, take an online audition workshop, take this. And I'm like, okay, well, if that makes you feel good, sure. But like, you don't have to learn how to adapt this way. Don't let this be it. And don't take young actors' money by saying that they're going to teach you how to do a class on Zoom. So I have opinions about that, but just hold up a few more months. It's coming back. We're coming back. Get your friends together, make some weird stuff, express yourself without the need for there to be a result. Because whenever you're looking for a result, you're going to be disappointed.
These are words of wisdom for everybody. Thank you for that. I mean, seriously,
It's sort of general and Like
No, it's not though, but it's like I have the same thing. Everyone's like, "Oh, learn to do this on Zoom." It's all going to open up again. People are all going to be able to go into an audition room soon or meet a director, and they're going to be able to do what we do when the theater comes back bigger and better than ever.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that gives me more hope, you know. I mean, I know it seems sort of saying it's like I want to do something now, but yeah, it's coming back.
Yeah.
Americans love stories. This story ends with a climax in space, and it starts right here on Earth. Money, fame, immortality. People will feel like they know you. They'll want to be you. Astronaut. Astro meaning star, not Voyager. Nobody has ever seen anything like you men until now. Few things live forever in the soul of a country. You're heroes.
John Glenn, Helen Shepard.
We've got the best pilots in the United States.
I know what you want, John. But it's almost like you're afraid of the competition.
Protect your image. You have everything to lose.